All right, well, welcome back to Malware. So today we'll be looking at Mac malware, but before that, I just had a couple announcements. So first off, for next year, if anybody wants to be officers or anything or involved in the club somewhat, or even just give presentations, you guys can reach out to us at any time and we'll set that up for you. And then we'll also be having the Capture the Flag competition shortly. This presentation will just be a little short one so that you guys can have some time to get more into it. And then on May 4th, we'll be having the next Malware Club meeting where we'll have two awesome presenters, some food and snacks and stuff. And we'll also be giving out over $300 worth of prizes for the Capture the Flag competition, which are things like external hard drives, internal hard drives, YubiKeys, stickers, and more. And 50 feet of LED lights, which is also very needed. Can you see my screen okay? So this is going to be going over some of Patrick Wardle's most recent book, which is The Art of Mac Malware. It just came out April 2022, so it's extremely up to date in regards to Mac malware, kind of going back to 2017 to 2022. So first off, do Macs even get malware? Of course they do. Mac originally was quoted saying that Mac doesn't get PC viruses, and a Mac isn't susceptible to get thousands of viruses plaguing Windows-based computers, and that's thanks to built-in defenses in Mac OS X that keep you safe without any work on your part, which was posted by the Apple marketing team on apple.com. But the statement was pretty deceptive, and Apple ended up removing it from their site. The main reasons they don't get nearly as much malware, though, are not necessarily due to just the heightened security and the lockdown OS, which is definitely part of it, but it is also due to their lack of presence in the enterprise computing market and the lack of cross-platform malware. So currently, Macs have about 15% of the desktop OS market share as of December 2021. But back in January of 2013, Macs had 91%, or Windows had 91%, and Mac had 8% of the share. The question at this point, though, that can be asked is why doesn't Mac have a larger market share for desktops? And the easiest answer could be that they don't necessarily want that. Apple marketing had attempted to break into more enterprise solution years ago with stuff like Mac servers and Mac MDM, which were promptly killed off a few years later after their creation, but some collectors can still be found selling them for like tens of thousands of dollars on eBay if you really want one. At this point, though, they're not targeting the same people that Windows necessarily is, and attempting to take something like Active Directory and Windows Enterprise on could screw the company up pretty big. Mac usage in the enterprise, though, has been increasing recently, but this could be mainly due to like individuals being able to choose what computers they work on, bring your own device policies, and more flexible conditions for onboarding foreign hardware. In the 2020 State of Malware report by Malwarebytes, they noted that for the first time ever, Macs had outpaced Windows PCs in the number of threats detected per endpoint. This information goes hand in hand with the fact that Macs are gaining more prominence in enterprise environments. With an increased presence in companies, more attackers will begin to target them. But at the same time, that's threats detected per endpoint. So who knows about the undetected threats on other platforms? So when attackers already have a proven piece of malware, why would they attempt to change it? This is why in 2020, over half of the newly discovered malware from Mac OS was found to actually just originate on Windows or another non-Mac platform like Linux. Some of these variants are malware like FinSpy, Gravity Rat, and IP Storm. If a malware has the ability to be ported, why not? Malware has all of the features already created for it and has been fully tested. So if it works, why change anything? Some pieces of malware don't even have to technically be ported. They can just be recompiled if they're written with flexibility and bind in certain languages. There's more and more languages coming out or different libraries for those languages that really enables cross compilation. So one of the ones I've been testing with recently is Golang, or just also known as Go, which is extremely easy to just recompile to fit another operating system, as long as the code inside of it that you wrote is flexible to work on that operating system. It doesn't like refer to hard file paths in Windows or direct libraries only present on Windows. In a 2020 report, it was shown that Mac-specific malware attacks are growing and that the attackers themselves are highly knowledgeable. They're keeping up to date with the development of the macOS platform and creating pieces of malware that leverage every potential portion of the Mac environment. As time has gone on, the sophistication of these attacks has also grown. Patrick Wardle, who wrote the book, has a write-up called Burned by Firefox, a Firefox zero-day drops a macOS backdoor. And in his post, it details how the attackers used a zero-day present in Firefox to deploy a persistent macOS implant. Other pieces of malware have been found to target specific portions of the Mac environment, like data vaults, and Trend Micro researchers found a piece of macOS malware that used 2 zero-day exploits to steal cookies using a flaw in data vaults and to abuse the development versions of Safari. The techniques of these attackers continue to evolve and get more advanced as the potential gain for infecting these computers grows. The Lazarus APT group has created an implant with the ability to remotely download and execute payloads directly from memory, which enables it to essentially completely bypass file-based security tools. Finn Fisher also had a piece of malware that utilized a kernel-level rootkit with the ability to remove targeted processes by unlinking it from the process list, which then hides that targeted process. In 2021, there was a bypass that also exploited a flaw in order to run unsigned and unnotarized code. This could allow attackers to bypass Apple protections like file quarantine, gatekeeper, and notarization requirements, which are the 3 biggest ones on Mac that you have to bypass to get to the actual system kernel. And in a Threats to macOS Users report by Kaspersky, they were quoted as saying, "Our statistics concerning threats for macOS provide fairly convincing evidence that the stories about this operating system's complete safety are nothing more than that. However, the biggest argument against the idea that macOS and iOS as well is invulnerable to attack is the fact that there have already been attacks against individual users of these operating systems and groups of such users. Over the past few years, we have seen at least 8 campaigns whose organizers acted on the presumption that the users of MacBook, iPhone, and other devices do not expect to encounter malware created specifically for the Apple platforms." So Mac malware has fundamental concepts, just like Windows malware, and a lot of them are extremely similar. The operating systems may change, but the overall tactics stay nearly the same. The main concepts are infection methods, persistence methods, and the capabilities of the malware. The infection method is how the malware is able to gain access to a system initially, and a lot of the malware needs social engineering in order to do this, as zero-day usage for updated software is a much rarer method, but still a potential threat. The persistence method is how the malware is able to stay on the system once it gets there and how it will attempt to remain running. This could be many things, from being activated to start at startup using things like launch daemons, launch agents, to utilizing something like a cron job. The capabilities of the malware are the payloads and modules used to achieve the goal of the attacker. Some attackers' goals are money, so the malware might encrypt the system and hold it for ransom, while others' attackers' goals might be for information, so the malware may collect and exfiltrate data. File quarantine is an older protection that Apple introduced that just warns a user when they were opening a downloaded file. From there, Gatekeeper was built on top of it, and it checks the code signing information of files that have been downloaded. It'll then block files that did not meet certain requirements according to the system's policies. Gatekeeper can check on the developer ID for those files, among other things. A newer feature is the presence of application notarization as well. This requires that all software be scanned by Apple before being allowed to run. It can be bypassed though, especially on older versions of macOS, since by default in Big Sur, unnotarized code is allowed to execute. And user-assisted infection vectors are probably the largest share of infections currently, since the human element is routinely referred to as the weakest point in organization security. The malware has got to get in front of a user in order to infect the computer a lot of the time, so some of the best methods require reaching directly out to that individual. This can be in the form of an email with an attached malicious Word document, which still works on Mac as well, or a call from fake Amazon support saying you had accidentally ordered an iPad and they need to remote into your computer to check some things and fix the false order. Opening an email most of the time won't by default infect the computer, but the malware itself is normally either an attachment or located at a URL included in the email. The main focus of the email itself is to normally attempt to convince the user to click on and or run the infection method. A great example that was brought up in the book shows how some attackers use typo squatting to target users. And these are fairly technical users as well if they're using Homebrew to do package managing for macOS. They bought the domain homebrew.sh in order to impersonate the package manager Homebrew, which is located at brew.sh. And if a user visited the malicious site, there would be pop-ups that would say the user's system is infected.
He got beat by his mama.
Blocked for security reasons.
Look how cute he is.
If
Touch
the
him. I
user
bet he's
called the
warm in the
support number
sun. Is he
listed on
warm?
the pop-up, they would be coerced by the person on the line to install a
So
malicious
warm.
software on
Hey,
the Mac.
mute your
The
audio.
installed software would then allow the attackers to access the information on the system remotely, which would then lead to the system being compromised further. The Windtail malware was able to infect users by abusing different components of Mac OS and Safari. At this point in time, Safari had a feature that would automatically open specific file types that were deemed safe. The operating system also had a registration of custom URL schemes. This URL scheme is normally utilized by applications in order to launch other applications, and the attack happened by luring users to a web page, which would then automatically download a zip file containing malware. From there, if the user was using Safari, it would automatically extract the archive. Mac OS processes all applications as soon as they are saved to disk, which is exactly what occurs when an archive is extracted. Safari still has this type of behavior. It's just a little more limited. Part of the processing of the application is registering the app as a URL handler if the app supports those custom URL schemes. Once the app is extracted, the system will launch a daemon that parses the app and extracts any custom URL scheme, which it will then register in the launch services database. A new entry will now be present that maps to the malicious app, which then allows the malware to be launched from the malicious site. The exploit itself uses JavaScript in order to execute the application from the site, as it is technically making a request to the custom URL scheme, which points to the malicious application. There are many targeted campaigns that go on as well. In one case, a malware known as XCSet targeted Mac OS developers by using an infected Xcode project. Xcode is generally considered the default IDE for developing software for Apple devices. So if an Xcode project that was infected with this malware was downloaded and built on the computer, the malicious code contained within would auto-run and the computer would then be infected. Supply chain attacks have been used as well. The popular Mac video transcoder application known as Handbrake had its official website compromised, and the attackers uploaded a repackaged malicious version of the original application for users to download. The malware attached to it was known as Proton, and most of these kinds of attacks can be countered with the application notarization requirements that are currently present today. In 2019, another example of this is that attackers were able to use a zero-day targeting Firefox users on a Mac system. An email was sent to them with a site link which contained the malicious exploit code. If the site was visited, a silent and persistent installation would occur and a backdoor would then be present on the computer itself. Login items are essentially applications that should be automatically executed each time the user logs in. A login item will run within the user's desktop session, and it will also inherit the user's permission and start at the user's login. Launch daemons and agents specifically are for Mac, and they are for persisting non-application binaries, where login items are for persisting application. Non-application binaries are things like software updaters and background processes, and launch daemons are non-interactive and are normally launched before the user logs in, and they run with root permissions. Launch agents run once the user is logged in, and they run with the standard user permissions, and they can also interact with the user session itself. Scheduled jobs and tasks are items that run at specified intervals, and there are many different kinds that can be used, so I'll only cover a few of them. Cron jobs are a type of scheduled job that runs at a specific time and utilizes the cron tab utility. Once set up, these run automatically. And login and logout hooks are run automatically whenever a user logs in or logs out. They are stored in a specific system folder on the Mac and contain a string that maps to the path of the file that needs to be executed at login or logout. Patrick Wardle has a free and open source tool on his site, which is Objective-C, and I'll show you in a little bit here, that can be downloaded to a Mac OS system in order to see what software or malware is persistently installed there. It keeps an eye out on a lot of the popular persistence mechanisms in Mac OS to keep the user informed. But at the same time, he's also warned that knock knock will show there's a bunch of persistent applications on your computer. So 95 to 99% of them are probably just A-okay. Recon is always performed by malware when it is infecting a system, or when it is deciding whether to further infect the system. There are many different things the attacker might want to check before going further, like whether a firewall is installed, if the system is virtualized, and more. This can be for many reasons, some of which may be that they want to infect specific systems, and others may be that they want their campaign or efforts going undetected for as long as possible. This is actually a lot easier on Mac than it is on Windows, because Mac requires to virtualize a Mac OS system. It's technically required to have another Mac system underneath it running on the actual hardware. So there are massive amounts of indicators inside of that virtualized host that show if the malware is actually in a virtualized system or not, which makes it really hard to dynamically analyze this malware in a virtual system. In the Mac OS malware known as Proton, though, it checks the system to see if there are any third-party firewalls present. If there are, the malware will not further infect the system and will instead exit. The authors of this malware decided it was worth it to skip over Mac OS computers with those firewalls present, and Proton checks for these firewalls just by checking for files associated with the presence of the applications themselves. Another piece of malware known as Mac Downloader has the capabilities to collect tons of information and exfiltrate it to a remote server. It can gather information from a user's keychains, which has things like passwords, certificates, and more, and will also gather details about the system, like the name of it, what processes are running, what applications are installed, and more. And there are many different file types that are specifically for Mac, and then also ones that can run cross-platform. On Linux and Mac, for example, Python scripts in almost all cases of Linux that I can think about will run by default, just with Apple has a default installation of Python on the computer when it's installed. And then Apple disk images .dmg and .pkg are the specific types that are mainly used there. And there's also bash shell scripts that will run on Mac and Linux, and then Apple scripts, which are specifically for Apple devices. But thank you for viewing that slideshow. Give me one moment just to bring up some information on Patrick Wardle's website, just so you can see his malware repository and the different kinds of tools he offers.
While Evan is transitioning, I thought I'd just give a couple brief remarks. For those of you who do not know, Patrick Wardle is extremely well known, very almost even famous, as being the de facto leader of anything macOS malware related. He also offers his own macOS malware yearly cyber conference in Hawaii. So if some of you are like macOS fanboys, that might be worth checking out. I think it's like $500. But and that's only if your corporation can pay for it. Otherwise, I think you just let them know and then it'll be free. But you'd want to double check on that. Patrick Wardle actually speaks at numerous different places. So I've been to a number of conferences recently, and I've seen him all over the world, literally from DEF CON to the Middle East presenting. So he's extremely active, and he definitely gets around.
And I think we had a question here real quick that I can answer as well. So will the malware work on Apple's new IB1 chips? I'd have to say that from a majority of the samples I looked at and walked through while I was going through the book, I think a vast majority of them would still work on Apple's new M1 chips, just because a lot of them are based on things like Python, Go, and other like multi-step build options. And when we were testing out some of the Go builds in the book, it ran on my old MacBook, which was just the Intel processor as well, and my current one, as well as being able to even be built for Windows with less features, obviously, since it was specifically built for Mac in the first place. So since these are like using those compilers, I don't think anything necessarily would change unless it was like some kind of rootkit or kernel level thing. But so some of his featured products over here are ones like Oversight, Knock Knock, Lulu, Block Block, and Do Not Disturb. And we can see like brief little summaries of them here. They're all free. They're all open source. So if you wanted to dig into the code and see how they worked, you can definitely do that. He's done a lot for Mac security and brought them extremely far, completing several bug bounties, and just as the professor said, doing tons of talks all over the world. So Lulu is that free open firewall for Macs that can protect your network connections and detect malicious activity. Knock Knock was the one in the slides. Task Explorers allows you to explore all running tasks and processes on the Mac. And Block Block monitors the persistent locations on a MacBook where malware might install itself. And then he's also got a huge repository of Mac malware and resources here as well, where the book stepped through a ton of these, like Apple Jesus, and you can get some more information, which these will normally just link to a popular blog post or tutorial going through the analysis of those samples. And then like the VirusTotal link, or if you want to go through it yourself and analyze it, you can download it here. But he has a ton. So that's to show that there's definitely quite a bit of Mac malware out there. And so before we jump into the CTF though, does anybody have any current questions? So last year we actually had a presentation done on a lot of the extremely low level work of like Mac malware and the Mac file system, the MacO file system done by Micah Flack. And it's available on our YouTube channel if you want to continue to dive deeper into that and see his analysis of that. No, I'm just gonna shut up. So the way you join the CTF is you'll have to go to that link up there, which is also posted in the Zoom chat if you're on that as well. It's ctf.0xevilcode with the 0 in the code.com. and you'll be able to create an account there, but make sure you remember your password, because if you forget it, you cannot do a forget password or reset or anything like that here. And this was put together by Josh Stroschein, right?
Not Josh Drosheim, but he was the one that was in charge of it. He had a student that worked under him. It was several years ago. I don't know the student's name. It was Josh's idea, his thoughts, but student implemented it. You know what the correct one is? Check. Ooh.
Oh, 164, my bad. So once you get in there and create an account and everything, you'll just have to click on the left-hand side of the home page here and do join a private competition. And you'll use the competition ID 164, and then the password will be the same one to get in the Zoom, which is the Malware Club. And then once in that competition, you should be able to create teams, join teams, and from there, you'll have to go over to the competition tab, which is where all of those questions will be located for the CTF.
Is that number working for anybody? The 164 or no? Okay. It's like do it like a private.
I didn't know what that was. Hear me?
So first step is you want to register, and you probably best to use your DSU email, but you can use whatever you want. Limited to 2 people per team for purposes of this competition. And he's waiting for that to load. Show them how to register. Or you could just log in. I guess registering is pretty obvious.
You did kill it. You did kill it? What? No way. Really?
Try that again. Are you logged in already?
Yeah, but it shouldn't bump you out, right?
I don't know. It might not.
Oh, well, yeah, there we go. Okay.
Mine's working.
So tell them what to do.
All right, so from this page, you can just go over to this left-hand side here and go to join private competition. And it's just that 164 and the Malware Club password. And so then you'll see this Malware Club CTF by Evan Reed pop up, and you can click on the view for that. And you can go over to team management, and I'll be sending out an email later with more in-depth kind of like read me how to do this information if necessary. And you can create your team here, and then
I would literally create a team so we could see.
so just type it in and then boom, create a team. And then you can personally invite your team members using the email that they use to sign up for the ctf.0xevilcode.com site. And then to get over here, to get to the questions and stuff, you'll just want to go to the top tab and you'll see competition right next to team management. And clicking on that, you'll see the packet analysis, open source intelligence, and the miscellaneous questions that can be used. And so just look at like the first packet analysis one, clicking on it, you'll see that there is a nuke.pcap. So the attachment for the first question in the series will most likely be used for the entire series. And all you have to do is just click on it to download it. And then once you find the flag, like the answer to the question, you'll just type it in there. These are case sensitive. And then hit submit flag, and it'll tell you if you got it right or wrong.
So for those of you who are very experienced with CTFs, I think for most of these, if not all of them, I don't think there's actual literal flags. It's just responding to the questions that are posed, and the answers are derived by examining the PCAP or whatever other article is provided for analysis. There is also a point multiplier. So the way this one is set by default is if you answer it more quickly, you'll get more points, and then the point value, the multipliers you can see right there, it just decreased by 1. It's going to continuously decrease. So it's advantageous to answer these questions sooner rather than later. Looks like he has a scoreboard over there. Oh, got some people already active. If people are wanting to form teams, this is all about getting the most points possible. So if you're working alone, you're probably not going to win. There are a lot of prizes at stake. Top 3 teams are going to get physical prizes. There's more than 6 prizes. We may give another prize or 2 that we have. So if you're looking for a partner, now is a good time to do that. Somebody in this room we probably can talk about that in a moment. If you're an online person, there's like a Google Docs. You can put your information there and try to find somebody that way. Sure, I can announce it. For those of you who are in my malware analysis class, if you are in one of the top 10 teams, you can receive 8 points extra credit. It's just in addition to any physical prizes you may or may not receive.
So you said it's Monday is when it's done? When is the CTF finished?
And the end date for this competition is Monday at 8:00 p.m. Just to give you guys a chance to actually survive finals.
We would like to have people who, if you are a winner and you're claiming a physical prize, it's best to come and get that next Wednesday. But if for some reason you can't, you're leaving home early, or an online student, it can be mailed to you. It's just more hassle that we'd rather avoid. And it's also fun just to get people their prizes too. All right, so of the people in this room, is there anybody who's wanting to do the CTF that needs a partner? Can you raise your hand if you're wanting to do the CTF and you need a partner? So everybody here has a partner, or they don't want to do the CTF, or?
So Adam just asked, can I show where the downloadable files are? And it's recommended to create a team first, even if you're by yourself. But the downloadable files can be located in the competition tab. And then, for example, I'll click on Nuke, which has a PCAP in the files area right here. And you'll just click on that and it will be downloaded to your computer automatically.
Could you maybe explain, like, generally, you have a lot of PCAP ones. Like, if I'm a student and I haven't done a PCAP, how would I get started even analyzing it in the first place? Like, what would I do? Could you maybe like demo one a little bit, or you don't have the tools to do that?
No, I don't have. Yeah, this is I don't use this one.
It's not as regular computer. You could talk about the process though, I guess.
Yeah, totally. So the 2 tools I'd recommend specifically for these PCAPs are Brim Security and Wireshark. If you want an intro to Brim and you weren't present for my presentation on it. It should be available on YouTube, but they also have a great introduction on their website as well. It can be downloaded to your computer, and it will give you a great overview of, sorry. And it will give you a great overview of like the network activity in that PCAP and allow you to look at like Suricata alerts and things like that to get some extra answers. But Wireshark can also help you, but Brim can be used hand in hand with Wireshark. So once you identify something in Brim, you can punch a little deeper and look at it in Wireshark. But all of these questions can also be done 100% in Wireshark by itself. I'd definitely recommend looking into like the filters and queries possible to be used in Wireshark. So to see like HTTP post requests, GET requests, see the statistics for HTTP, the exported objects from the PCAP capture itself, and then also looking up how to decrypt HTTPS traffic in Wireshark as well.
Do any of your online people need help finding teammates, or are you guys good? You can answer in chat or with voice. There's also the Google Doc as well if you need to.
Yeah, I would like
To
to
do
find a
that.
teammate.
And just remember, it's only 2 people per team if you're going to do this for the competition. That's mainly just because of, I'll turn my microphone on here too. And just a reminder, it's 2 people per team, and that's just because of the way we have our prizes. We only have X number of prizes, and so it's just easier to manage things that way.
Yeah, they are case sensitive.
And I think that's just an inherent limitation of the platform that it's case sensitive.
I have a question.
I'm going to stop recording the online video, but we're going to leave this open so people can talk and if they want to communicate or ask questions. You think we're good to stop?